Ever since we've had entertainment, we've used it as a distraction from responsibilities. So it's more than ironic when society fixates on media all about how much we despise that part of our life. TV is a medium meant for us to tune in regularly and follow characters who are conduits for ourselves. So why would we have them experience things we hate? Catharsis? Sadism? Who knows? But two of the biggest shows of their years, MASH and Severance, handle that concept perfectly. Come on, you can only look at pictures of Alan Alda and Adam Scott side by side so many times before you notice a pattern. Both series handle the same themes: work-life balance and how work can traumatize us, memory, dehumanization, loss of control, identity, and grief. So let's explore what makes these shows so unique, and how 50 years of history may not be so big a difference after all. Putting a warning here, this will have spoilers for MASH as a whole and Severance's first season, and I want to put a trigger warning for self-harm, suicidal ideation, and mental health.
Hi, it's me.
Hey, Columbo, it's Klinger here.
No kidding.
Have you seen my TV show?
What's the title?
It's called MASH.
MASH was one of the most influential sitcoms of all time for its clever blend of raunchy comedy with genuinely gripping drama. Created by Larry Gelbart and running on CBS from 1972 to 1983, it was based off the film of the same name, and the book that came before it. This show followed the nurses and doctors in the 4077th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital Unit of the Korean War. To say its cast was vast is an understatement. Alan Alda stars as our main character, the dry-witted Hawkeye Pierce. He's regularly joined by a companion in Trapper John McIntyre, Radar O'Reilly, BJ Honeycutt, or my personal favorite, Margaret Houlihan. The cast is rounded out with a whole host of other officers, nurses, doctors, soldiers, and many more. They get into many plots and schemes around the unit, sometimes just simple pranks, and others are quiet, introspective plots about the patients and doctors.
Hello, my name is Mark S., and I have, of my own free accord, elected to undergo the procedure known as Severance.
Inversely, 2022 Severance, created by Ben Stiller and airing on Apple TV, is a dramatic dystopian thriller with deadpan satirical humor. It follows the workers at the corporation Lumen who have undergone a procedure called Severance, which separates the memories of your work life, your innie, from your personal life, your outie. Adam Scott stars as Mark, a complex but diplomatic businessman who couldn't be more average if he tried, and took on the severance job to cope with the trauma in his outer life. After Helly, Britt Lauer, takes a horrible start to the company, she calls into question the strange ways Lumen treats its workers. Supporting them are their co-workers, the rule-following Irving, played by John Turturro, and the competitive Dylan, played by Zach Cherry. As the four of them dig deeper into the cult-like mentality they work for, they find genuine hope and connection, even when venturing through isolation, psychological warfare, abandonment, and flat-out abuse at the hands of the sadistic office.
War isn't hell. War is war and hell is hell, and of the two, war is a lot worse.
MASH wasn't a show about the Korean War. Sure, it took place there, but it wasn't about it. It was fairly obvious that MASH was a critique on warmongering culture, and how the country had bent over backwards for yet another war they didn't need to be involved in, Vietnam. This made the first few seasons very political, but it was able to mask it under the guise of Gelbart's comedy background. Take, for example, Season 1, Episode 6, Yankee Doodle Doctor. It follows a team that tries to film a documentary, inside the MASH unit, and Hawkeye, Trapper, and Radar all resolve to ruin the footage. They create their own film that seems to be all jokes and one-liners and slapstick, but in the end, Hawkeye makes a haunting speech about the horrors of war, that he doesn't want any part in this and nobody else does either. It's lose-lose. After the war ended in 1975, the show had a bit of a shift. The stories went inward, trying to convey complex backstories as opposed to outwardly political ones. This reflected the sentiment of the time. People were tired from Vietnam. They didn't want to be reminded of the strife it caused when they turned on the TV.
I am a person. You are not.
Severance didn't have a war to discuss, but it had something else: the pandemic. I know, we're all sick of it, but its main point was discussing the nature of the workplace, not just how isolating it is, but how isolating we are to ourselves. The severance procedure seems to be done by so many people to forget, to waste time for a few hours a day to make yourself feel better. But we realize how exhausting that is. The innies go in the elevator to leave work and come right back immediately after. We see months pass in outie time and no time pass in the inner world. The implications, the idea that a corporation has hold of an entire part of your identity is really scary, especially the isolation of it all. The pandemic did feel like this, very sterile and tight-knit. There were a lot of corporate dominance at play, too, Employers like Cobell, played by Patricia Arquette, and Milchick, played by Tremel Tillman, were able to do what they wanted with the employees that came in every day, running them completely ragged. There are many other resemblances between those shows on a textual level. The simplest one is that they're both workplace series. Very different workplaces, being an army hospital in a corporate setting, but handled similarly. The settings are incredibly oppressive. In Severance, this oppression is outwardly malicious and very artificial. MASH has a controlling environment, but not with nearly as much supervision. In fact, it's the opposite. The government is basically deployed and abandoned the MASH unit, only appearing when they feel like intervening and exercising control. On top of that, these shows play a lot with the concept of memory in different ways. Severance is kind of obvious. People turning off their brains when they go into work. But the experimental nature of how Severance handles it isn't unique to Severance. Multiple episodes of MASH address the same thing, be it through horrifying nightmarish dream sequences or the infamous chicken scene, which I won't spoil here for anybody who doesn't know it, but trust me, it would fit right at home in Severance. Given that these are both satires, we need to look at how they represent timely issues. And let's start with the negative. MASH is dated. A lot. Its humor was based in a lot of sexism, because what better do army doctors have to do besides chase tail? Apparently nothing.
Oh, no, nothing like that. But you just worked like a trooper above and beyond the call. Boy, your mind is in the gutter.
The only woman we see as a main character early on is an antagonistic force, stubborn and hard-headed, which, when your two qualities you can be are either a toy for men or straight up mean, maybe that's a sign your female cast may not be very good. Another department it struggled in was the topic of race. Given that the show takes place in Korea in the middle of the war, animosity was sure to happen, but the Korean characters that are present are regularly used as set dressing and punching down jokes. Their culture isn't accurately represented, and is looked down on in Korea to this day because of it. Overall, I think MASH was ahead of its time in some respects. The politics of the show are very liberal, pushing for an anti-war sentiment. There's even a decently handled queer character, and a character who regularly cross-dresses. For its time, it gave an intriguing look at depression, anxiety, and many other mental illnesses in an age where it wasn't becoming of a soldier to ever break down. So while it isn't perfect, it does improve over time and can still be enjoyed since its overall goal is one of acceptance. Severance, on the other hand, isn't political in the same way. It has a lot to say about corporations, sure, but it doesn't explore messages of race, gender, or queerness at all. And I say that last part with a grain of salt. There's a major gay character, and while he has an arc around his relationship, it isn't because he's queer that it's major. His relationship with Bert is dangerous because romantic relationships on the severed floor aren't allowed. I think this is honestly better than the typical, oh, I'm in danger because I'm with another man kind of story. It demystifies the queerness of it and treats it as it should be, like a normal couple. I think if anything, the best represented part of the show is mental health. It is graphic, yes, but multiple displays in the show have self-harm, paranoia, anxiety, and suicide attempts. This is represented best in Irving and Helly's characters. Helly has an entire sequence where she seems completely fine, even happy, before attempting to kill herself in the elevator. This is accurate to how people go through a suicide. In the days or hours leading up to their attempt, they feel a weight off their shoulders. Meanwhile, Irving's attempt to quote-unquote quit, while not a true suicide, would lead to Irving's innie essentially dying. Dylan talks him off the ledge in a beautiful scene that does a great job showing the experience of trying to talk someone down.
I want the pain to be over.
Religion is also tackled in Severance, in a way, more the concept of religious devotion to something like a corporation, and this cult-like mentality is also hinted at in MASH in the way patriots are joked about. In terms of reception, I would call both of these shows smash hits. MASH, while it struggled in its first season due to a poor time slot, is hailed as one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. All of its seasons, with the exception of its first and fourth, were in the top 10 rated shows of their season. The final episode, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, is the single most watched American TV broadcast, excluding Super Bowls, and the episode Abyssinia Henry is considered one of the greatest episodes of television. The show was nominated for 100 Emmys, winning 14.
And at the end of the year, they take him to the top of a pyramid, shake his hand, and throw him down the stairs.
Severance has recently gotten similar acclaim, both of its seasons being highly rated, ranking the top of many 10 lists. It's also won 2 Emmys, nominated for 7 in its first season. Severance has also had very interesting marketing strategies. My dad actually told me he stumbled upon the Lumen Industries LinkedIn, which is a real page. The company has also had ads with ZipRecruiter posing as a real company. And most notably is the recent pop-up in Grand Central Station, where all the lead actors save for Turturro are present working at their desks. As you can see, MASH and Severance talk a lot about their topics in a fascinating way and a very similar one. These people are brought together by a horrible circumstance and make it into a found family in order to survive. The dangers as they fight are different, of course. One is a war where their only job is to save as many people as possible, and the other is a company with motives nobody can truly understand. But what they do acknowledge is that everybody is human, and they aren't going to abandon each other for that.